Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. I'm going to give you an interview that we did later on, a little bit later, with El Señor Grimm, which is Ryan Grimm, which is the Intercept, I think the bureau chief in D.C. We met up at Netroots Nation 2019, where we were able to talk a little bit about Democratic Party, AOC, and all the issues that concentrating concerning our Democratic Party, the Democratic Party, etc., etc. It was a very positive discussion. I think also the interview was very positive. I think if we kind of listen to somebody talking sort of more on a neutral basis, we kind of get a hang for some of where we really should be. But anyhow, we had a good discussion that I want to play there. Hey, what about the good old Senor Trump doubling down on trying to make these young ladies the face of the Democratic Party? What about Trump trying to do all the things Trump does and the media allowing him to get away with it? Today I heard him say, he's going to extend the budget, the debt limit. And what does he go out there and say? He goes out there and he says, oh, we're going to extend the debt limit. We're not going to fight about it. But the most important thing that he said about that, and I think people have to understand how Trump's mind works. I don't know if a lot of people got it or not. But Trump said, if you take a look at Obama, you add all the presidents up before. And listen to what he's saying. You add up all the budget deficits of all the presidents before. And Obama's deficit was more than all the other presidents combined. I want you to understand what Donald Trump was doing there. Donald Trump was trying to prepare people for the numbers that are about to come out about the great budget deficit caused by his tax scam. He wants to make he's preempting it. He's trying to let people know that those numbers are going to be terrible. So he's preempting it with some somewhat true information on President Obama. But we have to remember the distinction here. When President Obama came into power, we were in a catastrophe. We had to get we should have thrown over $1 trillion. We should have created over $1 trillion worth of money to reinflate the economy rapidly. That's what we really should have done, right? In effect, it's modern monetary theory, but nobody likes to use that word because it scares the plutocrats, because when they screw up and they make money scarce, they don't want us to blow up the money supply, because the debt that we owe to them would suddenly go down. I'm not going to give a class on economics right now, but that is the real reason. The truth of the matter is, money is a figment of your imagination. Money is what people believe it is worth based on the country that prints it. That's all that money is. Money has no real intrinsic value. And most Americans don't know that. And because most Americans don't know that, we allow ourselves to have recessions, and we allow people to be unemployed and starving. The reality is none of that has to occur if we implement something known as modern monetary theory. And anybody who tells you that that is non-functional, tell them that is what you do every time you're inflating for the rich folk. When the market crashed in 2008, instead of us taking over, nationalizing the banks and all of that, we made those bankers whole. We should never have done that. That was an opportune time to nationalize the banks. That was the opportune time to take back control from a people whose sole purpose is to hurt us all. We didn't do it, so we reinflated. We used modern monetary theory to reinflate the economy, and we gave all those rich people that screwed us all a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance to do it over and over again. Anyhow, what is it about today? Why is it that you cannot do this by call? Skype cannot come in with calls on our internet. That is not right. Anyhow, folks, let's go ahead and continue with the program. The title of the program today is Intercept's Ryan Grim Talks Democratic Party Problems, including AOC and the Squad. That is the title. That's the top line title of the show today. The subtitle of the show is I caught up with the Intercept's DC Bureau Chief, Ryan Grim, at Netroots Nation 2019 and discussed the Democratic Party as well as his new book. And his new book is a pretty darn good book. I just got, I got it there. Somebody took the book off of my booth while I was out there in Philadelphia. So I had to get in touch with Alex today and say, hey, guy, I need a copy of the book. So I went ahead and got an e-copy of the book. And that's what I'm working with right now. Anyhow, the Intercept's Ryan Grim gets candid about Democratic Party, AOC, more and more. Trump and the media are trying to make the squad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, the left-wing radicals. Yesterday, we urged the progressives and Democrats not to fall into the trap. We must not sacrifice or leave these women hanging. Their policies, when not caricatured, or in line with what the polls say most Americans want. I ran into Ryan Grim at Netroots Nation 2019 and interviewed him on the subject. Grim has a new book out. We've got people from Jesse Jackson to AOC, the end of big money and the rise of a movement that we discussed as well. He has taken on Democrats that we would do well to listen to now. Or rather, I should say, he has a take on Democrats that we would do well to listen to right now. Folks, independent progressive media needs your support from progressives and otherwise. Free Speech TV, Pacifica Network, and most other independent networks right now are having issues, are having problems being funded. So we ask you guys to always make sure to keep us funded. That's the only way we are going to be successful in doing what we do. But without further ado, what I want to do right now, folks, is I want to go to Grim's piece, and then we'll discuss more of it on the other side. So here it goes. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right, incrementally. And guess who we found? The one and only Ryan Grim. You know, remember the new book that he has that you must... Tell them why they need to get this book.
Well, first of all, it's a fun read.
It's more than a fun read.
And reading... reading ought to be the thing that has gratified me probably more than anything else has been people who've called it a page turner.
Right.
Because a lot of political tracks are just boring and dense.
Yes.
But this one, it's 400 pages, be warned, but people are plowing through it in a night or in 2 days. And then the second most gratifying thing is on Twitter, seeing people, or on Facebook, seeing people engaging in arguments online and drawing things from the book, and informing the way that they understand the current environment. And I swear that what Pelosi and the CBC are doing right now to AOC and the others is not a plant. It's not some type of book promotion scam that I engineered. But good Lord, what they are doing now is what's in this book on steroids. You know something? I haven't completed this book. In fact, somebody came to me and said, "This is the book you have got to read." And then I looked at the table of contents and I said, "This is the book I've got to read." You were formerly with Huffington Post, and then you moved on to the Intercept. And I must tell you that I do a whole lot of blogging and the radio, and I use a lot of your material because I find you to be one of. There are not a lot of credible journalists out there, and I was giving you a little bit of hell saying that you're not supposed to have a position and all that sort of stuff because you're a journalist. Right. I call myself an activist blogging journalist, which is completely different from what you are. Now, tell me what do you think about
the election going forward?
Um,
I've heard you speak a lot about it.
So yeah, there's I have a couple different points that I'd want to make on that. One of them, and I talk about this in the epilogue of the book, which is one of the few places where I can kind of just say what I think.
Right.
Prologue less so, but epilogue, it's like here's what I think.
Right.
The rest of it's straight news. Democratic primary voters have fancied themselves pundits,
right,
for actually probably hundreds of years.
Right.
There's and when I say Democrats, if I'm talking about the 19th century, I'm talking about Republicans. Like
right.
the left and the liberals, they flipped, but
right.
Lefties and liberals in this country have always overthought elections,
right,
and they try to think, who is it that these other people that I don't really know would end up supporting,
right,
rather than voting for the person that they support. And the further problem is that they don't interact a lot with those other people,
that
so they
claim to support,
or that they're trying to win the support of, and so then they end up nominating people that actually those people don't like at all,
right.
like John Kerry. They'll tell themselves, well, they don't. These right wingers aren't going to like Howard Dean, so let's nominate John Kerry because he's going to be electable. He's a war hero. People will rally around him. There was no way that these white working class people were going to rally to John Kerry.
Right.
Get the hell out of here with that.
Right.
Howard Dean maybe, because Dean's authentic and he's saying, yes, he's more to the left, but he's saying something that he believes in and that they might want to hear. So whenever they overthink it, they end up blowing it. The one time they didn't overthink it, they nominated the guy named Barack Hussein Obama that everybody said could never win in America.
Yes.
He won the first majority since the 1970s
yes.
for Democrats. But they didn't take that lesson away from it. They just kind of chalked that up to good luck, I guess. And so I'd say stop if you're a voter voting as a pundit. Like you don't actually know that Joe Biden is more electable than Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or whoever else. You don't know.
Right.
You might think it.
Right.
But what about your history of
right.
predictions
right.
gives you the confidence to say, I don't really like Joe Biden that much, but I think that other people that I've heard about on Fox News or elsewhere, MSNBC, they might like him, so I'm going to nominate him.
Right.
And then he goes up against Trump and gets wiped out. I think there's a real risk. I think he's a terrible candidate.
Let me tell you, he is a terrible candidate, and I don't even think he's going to win the primaries. I think he'll going to be out sooner than later. But what can I say? I think it's a bit, and my thing is, I think it's a bit more sinister, right? I actually think they know exactly what they're doing. And I actually think
some of them maybe, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not talking about the rank and file Democrats, but I'm talking about the ones that are saying, okay, we really want this. Because I'll be blunt, I really don't care. I don't think some of them really care if Trump loses or wins.
So I write in the book about the 19, and this is kind of where the narrative starts. The 19 for the left narrative, 1983 Chicago mayoral election. Harold Washington, with Jesse Jackson as his chief ally, runs for mayor. He's a congressman, a black man with the support of the Democratic Socialists of America and the Young Lords, the Reformed Gang. He runs for mayor, and Ted Kennedy, Walter Mondale, and the whole machine come in and endorse Richard Daley in the primary. Washington wins the primary, despite all of this pushback against him. Then the entire machine goes over and endorses the Republican in the general election. They don't just do little conspiracies behind the scenes and it's clear that they're sort of in the background supporting the Republican. They are all in on the stage
for
publicly endorsing the Republican in Chicago.
And
Harold Washington ends up winning the general election 52-48. So he still won, but this is a city that's 90+% Democratic, and he only gets 52%, but he won. And so that goes to your point that in a lot of cases there are some figures in the Democratic establishment that would rather have a Republican win than lose power within the party to a different faction. Because if you think about the various outcomes and what the result is for the establishment, think about it this way: the establishment Democratic wins, and the establishment wins the general election. Great for them.
Everything great.
They're golden. Establishment Democrat wins the primary, and the Republican wins in the general. Establishment still controls
Exactly.
the mechanisms of power
And
within
not only that,
within
they
the
can
party.
also use, they can say the progressives caused the loss.
They blew it for us. If the progressive wins the primary and then wins the general election,
God, yeah.
they're done. Like
Exactly.
the party is now controlled by the progressive wing of the party. So of the three outcomes, the progressive winning the actual general election is, from a self-interested perspective, the worst. Now, there are certainly some members of the establishment who would put country before their own self-interest. But when you have self-interest incentives lined up in that way, you're going to have a lot of people who follow those incentives, and you're going to see third parties, and.
It was interesting. On Morning Joe, Donnie Deutsch was on.
Yeah, there you go.
And Donnie Deutsch said, if one of these guys win, I am voting for Trump. And it was funny because I was surprised to see how Joe Scarborough pulled them back.
You're not allowed to say that out loud. Right. You can't say that out loud. That's the quiet part.
Right.
But Donnie Deutsch knows that in a world where Warren is president and Bernie Sanders is president, who cares what Donnie Deutsch says?
Exactly.
He's out.
He's out.
I mean, he can still appear on MSNBC if he wants, but who's gonna what value does he bring to the conversation? He doesn't have connections in that world. He doesn't have any insight into it, and so for people like him, and so that's the media side of it. On the political operative side and the lobbyist side, there's thousands more of those people. They're out.
Absolutely so.
He's fine with Donald Trump in the White House. Like, he's doing fine.
Yes. And actually, it's a business.
He's probably
too,
doing great. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we close here, you were talking about AOC and Nancy Pelosi. I'd like to hear your take on that. Pelosi against the four freshmen.
Good. I think it shows just how much of a threat they are to the establishment. So far, they have been called nerds and bullies.
Right.
You can't be a nerd and a bully.
No.
You got to pick one.
Right.
They've been said that they are threatening the Democratic majority, and that they're gnats that need to be swatted away. They are, or they're for people, and they have no following.
Right.
It can't be all of these different things. Which is it? Is this a huge threat that you're using all of this force to fight back against, or are they completely meaningless? Are they bullies? Are they nerds? Like, come on. The incoherence shows just how dangerous they are to the Democratic business model.
Right. Well, I hope going forward enough of the activists, bloggers like we are, and enough of the mainstream journalists like you are would actually find a way to get that message out. Because I think what's happening right now is most Americans are unemployed.
People got to buy the book.
People have to buy the book. And what's the name of the book? It's your book. You say the name of
We've
the book.
got people with a very long,
very
long subtitle, from Jesse Jackson to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, The End of Big Money, The Rise of a Movement. You will love it. Money back guarantee.
Roy Grimmett, look, it's a pleasure having you, and thank you very much.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, so that was the interview with Ryan Grimm. I hope you enjoyed that. We had a lot of fun out there in Philadelphia. He was with the Social Security Works out there. He also just started a new book publishing company. Interestingly, he was out there, writing his next story for the Intercept and doing a whole lot of other stuff. I think I saw him doing at the table, because there are a couple of times that he was pretty much getting in touch with people who for his story. In fact, that interview that I just did, it was I had to concatenate two of these two versions, because we had to do it twice. He got a call, I guess, from one of his sources or something as he was doing that interview. But anyhow, so going back on point now, what I really need, let me get to the message to see what people are saying here on the screen. First, Okay, we have Rene Perpetua who says, no Joe Biden, please. But before we go, folks, please remember this is a call-in show. You can give us a call at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Whether you're on YouTube or whatever. If you're on YouTube, I'm monitoring the messages from YouTube as well. So you can send me the messages on YouTube, or you can send me the messages on Periscope, or the messages on Facebook Live. I have Restream is allowing me to put all the messages together. What I'm doing is I'm going ahead and comparing those messages directly to the page just to make sure that I'm not missing anything, and I don't think I'm missing anything at this point in time. Anyhow, going to those messages. Rene Perpetua says, no Joe Biden. Rene, I don't think we have much to worry about. I don't think we have to I think Joe Biden is going to peter out. His numbers are just progressively fallen. Marianne Castiglia, Richards Castiglia, our 100th member. I keep hearing so many good things about this book. Yeah, and I saw the table of contents. I haven't read the entire book yet, but the table of contents is impressive. It's a medium-sized book, but it's a well-read book. And if you follow Ryan Grimm's from the time he was at Huffington Post to now that he's at The Intercept, his writing style is pretty darn good, pretty understandable, unlike some who try to do certain kind of hieroglyphics with their words. Rene Perpetua agreed. Okay, Kathleen Morgan said a man was just arrested for threatening to shoot Ilhan. So your fear is quite warranted. Look, we have to be careful. I think Ilhan, even when she was out there, she was out there at Netroots with us, and she doesn't walk around with a whole lot of guards or anything. She had her staff with her, and that's about it. When she had to hold her, get out of there, Ilhan just had 3 people with her walking her to the car to get to the airport. So she may need some to get a security guard or stuff to start walking with her, given that the president has made her, our president is a clear and present danger. Maywood says hello from Long Beach. How are you doing, May? Welcome aboard. Renee, let's see. Kathleen Stevens says, I just tuned in. I will be getting his book. Everything I heard is so right on. The Democrats need so much help now. I want another party altogether. We're so weak and spineless, run by older people. The thing is, it's not. Look, folks are scared. They're concerned. And they operate by a different paradigm than the younger folks, let's say the Ilhan Omar, AOC. And that is just the way folks were cultured. I mean, I think it's incumbent upon the squad. We don't need to, the squad doesn't need to just throw in the face, oh, you guys are older and we can do things better, because there's much to be said from the experience. And I think AOC has pretty much learned that. AOC is having a meeting with the speaker on Thursday. The way you get things done is you merge the experience of the older folks along with the impetus and that drive, that wanting for change from the young people. And I think if the Democratic Party proper learns how to do that, use that experience from the older folks and get our direction from the younger folks, we'll do fine. But what we have to remember is something that I'm going to read from the blog of the week later on as we go on. Rene Perpetua says there is one political party. And Rene, you hit the nail on the head. And that one political party is a plutocracy. That is a party that we need to bust up, and we will. That is the purpose of independent activism and all that sort of stuff to do that. I think that Bernie would win if it weren't for corporate Dems. We know that. He would have won the election last year. That's almost a certainty. Kathleen Stevens, Rene Perpetua, love your name, and I agree there are forces fighting Bernie all the way, and they'll continue to fight Bernie all the way. And I tell you something, folks. I think eventually the progressives are going to converge onto Elizabeth Warren. And like I told folks, those that are strong Bernie supporters, and do remember that I was a Bernie delegate in Philly back in 2016, when we get pragmatic, if for some reason, whatever happens, it may turn out that Elizabeth Warren will end up carrying the water of the progressive movement. And I tell you one thing that I think I want to explain to the Bernie supporters. Bernie is an unabashed democratic socialist that goes out, say he has no problem saying it, because he understands that the values that are within the types of democracies that we see in Denmark and these other places, or what work for people. If you take these countries are happy. They try to make all kinds of excuses. Those countries are homogeneous, yes, more so than America, but they work. And homogeneity has very little to do with having successful policy. We can have successful policy without racial homogeneity, because if you believe what we claim to believe as progressives, pigmentation should have very little to do. And I know there are other societal issues, but we should be able to get around that without a problem establishing good models. Now, that said, because of the pressure that we are going to have from the plutocracy, from the media run by the plutocracy, whatever Bernie does is going to be hard for Bernie to come through. However, I think what Elizabeth Warren did was very smart, and I want all my Berniacs to listen to this quite well. I think Elizabeth has played a perfect game. Elizabeth Warren, if you take a look at the policies that Elizabeth Warren is coming out with, these are the same types of policies that Bernie would come out with if Bernie had applied numbers to his policy, if he had applied rules to his policies. What he hasn't done is a whole lot of that in the detail in which Elizabeth Warren has done hers. And what she has done is she's just come out and said, oh, I'm a capitalist. And then she comes out with all these rules. Well, when you have enough rules on capitalism, I think by definition it devolves into democratic socialism. I think well-regulated capitalism is nothing more than democratic socialism with free enterprise, meaning the private sector gets to do its thing, it gets to have its independence, it gets to have it gets to create jobs, it gets to create businesses. You can have your business, you can have all these things, but we decide that in this society there's a certain amount of regulation, and not only regulation, but things like healthcare becomes a right. Things like childcare becomes a right. Things like there are specific issues or specific policies that says all American citizens will have these rights to make us a better country. What did the preamble of the Constitution say again? To make sure that to guard the welfare of us all, and that's what that would do. Okay, continue. René Perpetuosa, we've got people. The 99%. Do you remember that movement? I don't know how many of you, right after the Occupy movement, that's a movement that we started, the 99%. The 99% actually superseded the Wall Street movement. I know the Wall Streeters are going to hate that I said that, but that is really when we try to give some meat to the Occupy movement, which again was very decentralized and not, well, I won't go there. Kathleen Stevens, if we could fall in line together, we would be a force to be reckoned with. You are right, Kathleen. You are right. But let me tell you how we get together. We all know how to do it. Those of you who are listening to politics, we know how to do it. The way it's done, the way we get together, first of all, is we have to be able to talk to people, right? And you hear me talk about not talking to the choir. A lot of times I'm talking here. The great thing about the open forum that I try to keep with Politics Done Right is we're not just talking to a whole bunch of progressives. We have a continuous flow of conservative, Trumpists, and all of those. Some of them give me hell, some don't, some want to listen. We have to talk to absolutely everybody, because that is how we expand our base. And just like you've just said, Kathleen, what you've said is, if we could fall in line together, we would be a force to be reckoned with. And you are absolutely right. And that's my goal. My goal is to help us work together. And that doesn't mean just a whole bunch of progressives. That means everybody, because we have so much in common that we can work towards, and then we can fight about the specific progressive things that the other side doesn't want. Folks, this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Rene says the squad is an inspiration. I think the squad is an inspiration, so much so that I made a squad t-shirt recently in that honor, if you will. So anyhow, let me go ahead and go to what I have is called the blog of the week. But before I go to the blog of the week, somebody just called in as soon as I was going to read the blog of the week. So let me go to the phone. Come on in. 973. Come on in.
Bernie, Alberto.
Señor Juan.
Hello?
Háblame, señor Juan. Háblame.
Yes. You know, it's so hard being right.
Yes.
It's so hard being right because, you know, you don't want things to be the way that they appear to be.
Right.
But when you talk about what's happening to the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party having to move away basically from this corporate sponsorship that they're having and back into the hands of the people.
Right.
And all the people that have a vested interest in maintaining the corporate structure. And it's amazing to me that they're not even giving the squad a chance. They are literally out there with pitchforks to frame them as radicals,
Right.
to frame them as something other than what they are, which is true Americans. True Americans who heeded the call of a president who is being radical in his comments and his divisiveness, who ran for office and did what Americans are supposed to do.
Right.
Which is come out and enforce.
You're correct, and you know the thing about it when you talk about. I want to. Ayanna Waldner had a comment here that I really want to address, but before I address, I want to address you, Johnny. You're so right as far as the party and the corporate side of the party. See, I say that specifically the Congress, right? The Congress should be the one that need the least support from corporate money, right? Because if you are in a district, I don't care if you are in Montana where it's huge. Because it's huge with a whole lot of little towns, you can do what Beto O'Rourke does, and that is really serve your constituents. It's not like you're in Washington, D.C. a whole lot. You can drive around and you can do your thing. You do not need corporate dollars for that. But what we've gotten used to is that is almost like crack, right? It's you get on the phone, you stay in Washington, D.C., and you just let your fingers do the money. Get in the money. AOC and all these guys prove that you don't have to do that. You can talk to your people and have them using the new methodologies that we have with the internet, have these people support you if you're really there to support them. The problem is too many Democrats, that's not what they're doing. And I hate to say this, and I'm going to bring this up because of something Ryan Grim said. Ryan Grim said this, and it's something that I noticed, and that is how Nancy Pelosi is using the CBC as sort of a weapon against those women. In other words, the Congressional Black Caucus, she's using it as a weapon against the AOC and her team, the squad. And I think the CBC allowing themselves to be used as a pawn is such an embarrassment, but not only an embarrassment, but it just shows that they also, many of them themselves, are controlled by the corporatocracy.
Well, we've been complaining about the CBC for a minute, and one of the reasons why you know that they're controlled by people other than the ADOS they're supposed to represent is the fact that they're not even willing to push this HR. I think it's HR 41, which is just to even symbolically look at reparations.
Right.
Not to get on that subject, but that right there just goes to show you how corrupted they've been. And I'm going to tell you something. And the thing I don't like about the CBC, and just as a side note, the CBC is more concerned with DACA, which is fine, but they're more concerned with DACA than they are serving Black America.
Well,
and there's nothing wrong with taking up arms for DACA because it's appropriate to do that. Like, you can't be for justice and let DACA people hang out in the wind.
They should be
but my
concerned
point
about
is that
both.
you can be for DACA.
Right. They should be concerned
yeah, you can
about
do both. Like, you can do both.
Right. The issue
Right.
is that the corporatocracy does. Look, let me tell you something, Johnny, and then I need to answer Ayanna Waldner. Let me tell you something, Johnny.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Here's the problem, Johnny. If you open reparations, that for right now, that is a huge can of worms, because when you backtrack this country's wealth, the amount of wealth that was derived from the spoiled seed, it could go places we're not sure where it'll end. And corporations, old corporations, etc., I mean, it could get pretty darn nasty pretty quickly. And that's why they don't really want to open kind of worms right now.
Well, of course not. But see, this is one of those unintended consequences when you put a person like Trump in office. Because remember, black people have been kind of playing along with this facade called America.
Yes.
We've been playing the well, it'll get better in the future. We'll just keep hanging on. But see, the problem is that you've had a radicalization of what happened to Obama.
Johnny, I want to stop you there. I want to ask you something. I want to ask you something because right now you're fighting, and I promise to get back onto the subject in a minute with capitalism and what Amy Wallner is. So Amy, stay with me. I just want to ask Johnny one thing. Johnny, you're a doctor, right?
Yes.
Okay. My question to you is, you made it out, right? You are going to be the poster child whenever people for ADOS take up that subject. How are you going to handle that?
Well, here's the thing. As I say to people all the time, my job is not to be the government for my family members.
Right.
So in other words, what I'm saying is that, yes, I have made it. But when I go to visit my cousins, I go to visit my aunts, my uncles, I can see the devastation in our community firsthand. And so it should not be put on me to play the role of government and support my family members
answer.
and help them the way I'm being forced to help them.
Johnny, I just wanted to know that you were prepared to answer that. It's not about the individual. It's about the.
Oh no, but the point is that my job as a tax-paying citizen should not be to play the role of government.
Right. I got it.
And what's happening is that I'm being forced to fix and repair the problems that our government has created for people with my ancestry. Right. That's all.
Got it.
And that's why when I talk about the debt, and I should be able to live my life like a rich white guy.
Right. Let me ask you to hold.
Fancy free.
If you can hold, I'll leave you on. If you have to go, you can go. But I'll leave you on.
No, I'll hold.
Okay, great. All right, Aina, Aina wrote on Facebook Live. She said, "Socialism isn't what we want. We want fairness. Sweden isn't a socialist country. Sweden has a mixed economy with coalition government in parliament, much freer for the people than in U.S." Aina, encapsulated within your words is one of the reasons I think Elizabeth Warren stands a better chance of getting through. Not only to the Democratic primary, but the country itself, because you hit the nail on the hand. When you say socialism means a hell of a lot of different things to a hell of a lot of different people, right? The definition in the dictionary, Webster Dictionary, I can tell you is wrong. You're going to see, if you take a look at socialism and communism in the dictionary right now, Webster, you're going to see that the definitions are identical. And that is by design. The Powell Manifesto ensures that you have a specific fear for socialism. Socialism as I see it, or when I say let me call it democratic socialism, just to preamble it and make it softer, right, is a bifurcated democracy where you have certain portions of that democracy completely handled within the free sector, the private sector, and the other side in the public sector. In other words, where there's no innovation needed, where in parts of the economy where competitive innovation is not necessary, that should be in the government sector. Let me give some examples.
Roberto,
go ahead.
Roberto, you have to call this person out.
Why?
Because they're not being truthful there. When they say they're against socialism, our economy is a mixed economy with aspects of socialism built into it.
I understand that.
So there's no way that...
Johnny, it's not about...
So to call America a socialist country just because people are asking for the things that they need to survive.
No, I get
that's
it.
Not
I get
fair.
it, but I don't have to.
But they're for tax cuts for corporations.
I got it, Johnny. Let me explain what I'm doing here. I don't have to call out somebody because, well, like I said before, the problem is...
Well, that's true.
Let me finish. Your definition of socialism compared to Aina Wallner's definition of socialism are completely different, because and we made it that way to create confusion. So what I'm trying to do, we made it that way. We want the confusion so that we can continue with unfettered capitalism. So if people don't really know what we're talking about, we can have all those people just hear socialism and go berserk. I am trying to say, no, don't go berserk. Let's talk about what we want. And I'm saying, if you listen to Elizabeth Warren right now, Elizabeth Warren talks about all the programs that that Americans want. And not only that they want, but she gives a plausible way to pay for it. And that plausible way to pay for it is it's from getting the monies from the extravagances from the 1% that and don't believe there's a good thing that comes out, right? We've done a magical thing in this country, and I want all of those that are listening to me to understand this. We've done a magical thing. We want the statement that said the following: you couldn't tax the rich enough on their income to pay for all the things that you middle class and poor people want. They like to say that, and then that number seems like a true, because income, if you look at what income is, they would be right. As we define income, they would be right. The thing about it is they're lying to you, right? Rich people don't get income as wages. They don't get income that way. They get income as capital gains or wealth expansion. And all of that money, capital gains, is taxed at a much lower rate than regular income. And secondly, increase in your wealth is not taxed at all until it is realized. So when they tell you that there's not enough money from the very wealthy, in other words, Bezos, one person has $160 billion. You could tax him at 90%. And you got about a tenth of our budget, one person, right? But that's not even what Elizabeth Warren is saying. Elizabeth Warren came out with a plan where she shows a 2% wealth tax. 2%. Remember, the wealthiest wealth grows at anywhere from 7% a year or more. In other words, they extract more out of the economy than the economy grows. And we're saying we're taking back 2% of that. 2%.
Agreed.
We take, and that pays for.
But Berto,
yes.
That pays for everything. But here's the issue.
Yes.
I don't think anybody signing up is like people start espousing capitalism as the answer.
Right.
What we have here is actually not capitalism. It's not free market capitalism, because if we had free market capitalism, you'd have a liquor store and a strip club on every corner. But what we have is a predatory form of capitalism.
Right.
And so when I hear people talk about this kind of like, oh, we want the government out of it, basically what they're using these tropes. But at the end of the day, what's really coming down is that they don't want to have to share their wealth with people that look like me.
And there is a lot.
And so,
but you know what? I can't. Here's the thing about that, Johnny, right? For those people who think that way, right? There's not much I can do about that. All I can worry about is policy. And what I'm saying is that is one of the reasons I kind of like the way Bernie does a few things, right? People, those of us, or not those of us, many folks in the POC, they hit on Bernie for always twisting it back into an economic issue, right? They give him a hard time because they say, oh, he ignores race, etc. The truth of the matter is, many times I do the same. And the reason why I do the same is, let me explain what I mean by that. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I am not smart enough, I am not good enough to change the hearts of people. I can't do that. Right? I can slowly work with people, and as people learn that we are really all the same, they learn that eventually in the long run, that'll change on its own. I can't do that. What I have to do is I have to try to convince those, because remember, minorities are minorities for a reason. They're minorities, and there's just a certain, unless you want to go to war, there's just a certain amount of political power you wage. So what you have to do is you have to show why it is beneficial for us all. And, that's why sometimes it get on, when people say, well, we are going to fight and you have to do X, Y, Z, a lot of times I say, no, they don't. No, they don't. Unless you're going to get out there and create, or unless you are going to get out there as a minority and create such hell for the majority that it's in their best interest to make things equitable, there are two ways to do it. One is convincing, the other one is fighting, right? There are just two ways, no two ways about it. And one of the problems is for the POCs, they've been doing neither.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
But Berto, the one thing I would just push back a little bit on is that there has to be, at this point, an acknowledgement that black people, we've tried the Pan-Africanism thing, didn't work, as far as bringing black people from all around the world and getting them focused, like, through Bob Marley music. We tried the people of color thing, where everybody now that's not white is a person of color. We've tried to help women. But with all movements, one theme that seems to be consistent is that all of these people will use black people to gain benefits for themselves.
And I want to correct that statement. I really want to correct that statement because you and I spoke about it earlier and you actually agreed. We have something called the CBC. Nobody's asking them to betray you. They've just did it on their own.
Oh, but they are. And they always have been. And that has been the tradition of the CBC.
Right, they betray you. And that's
yes,
what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is we can't, and notice what I said before, there are two ways to solve a problem, right? You're either going to fight about it or you're going to be convinced, you're going to work on convincing folks. They've done neither. And that's my point. Okay?
Agreed. Can I also put the NAACP in that grouping as well?
Absolutely so. Definitely. They are useless.
Thank you. Right.
They are useless.
And I would just point out that these institutions have betrayed black Americans in a way that, look, I can make an argument that, again, as a person, a foundational black person in this country, we have no friends. We have no friends. We have no friends in our own community and outside of it. And that's all, of course, by design.
Right.
Because to balance the budget in America, balance the budget, you only need to steal from 4%, 5% of the people, because like you said, they're able to extract more wealth than the economy is creating on its own. So that the specter of capitalism is not working as it's designed. So that money's coming from somewhere, and the CBC, of course, never just goes to the microphone and says, this kind of extraction is not sustainable. And where's it coming from? Let's follow the numbers.
And so let's close this part of the discussion, Johnny, with one thing that I want to say here. And that is why you are here. That is why I'm here. That is why René Perpetua and everybody else are here. Because what we talk about is, how do you sensibly move the talk. And my theory is I'm going to get all these folks together. And it's going to happen. I know I have to be an ally with you and Tamara with ADOS. I must be an ally with you guys. But
yes, you are. You're a fantastic ally.
But I am also going to be working with absolutely everybody in what we do so that we all move on together for the things that are specific to ADOS. Again, like I said, things that are specific.
Right. Well, let me just say something about that. Listen, you can't. I'm for ADOS. But at the end of the day, what I'm really for is for truth, justice, and equality for all.
I agree.
And so I can't just be for ADOS. I have to be for me to be a consistent, ethical, and moral person that has to apply to everybody.
Thank you, and I think that is.
And so that's all I'm asking for.
Johnny, with that, I'm gonna close you out.
I
think that was a perfect.
Thank you, brother.
Perfect closer, my brother. You have a good one. All right.
Take care.
All right, folks. Oh wow, we got real active on our messages here, and I want to tackle some of them here real quickly. So Ayanna Wallner, I think I explained to you what Like I said, socialism has different meanings for different people, and it's been like that for quite a while. Like I said, the dictionary description of socialism is simply wrong. I'm not even gonna go into any further thing about it. It was wrong by design. The Powell Manifesto wanted to make sure that people are confused about it. Let's see what else I need to talk about. Okay, but I believe that there is a 40%, 45% tax rate. No billionaires control capitalism. That is a kind of social democracy, the Nordic model. René Perpetua, true. Let me see. Heavy regulations and heavy taxes. They used to have very high taxes and still couldn't support such socialist policies. Mike, for some reason you have to deny math and you have to deny how the economic system works. Let me give a quick 30-second refresher. All right? If you have wealthy people that have a whole lot of money stocked away, and first of all, we know that it's not stocked away into investments because we know our country is falling apart, and the only thing they invest in are things that make them money immediately. So we know that they're not investing back their monies into society. And money is something that we created, right? So therefore, we're saying, yes, you tax the whole hell out of it. If you're not going to reinvest it back into the economy, we tax it out of the economy. That's how it works, right? And here's the deal where the conservatives generally misrepresent what really happens. The monies that are gotten from rich people would have been sitting somewhere. Once we give that money to the middle class and the middle class and the poor, and I'm not saying give money, I'm talking about when we have policies that support things like education, when we have policies that support things like having people have your kids in school, in pre-K and all that sort of stuff, that means you need more teachers, you need all these other professions, and because you're generating all those different things, you have more economic activity. So that money that would have been sitting somewhere with generating no economic activity now is generating economic activity because we're forcing that money back into the economy. CSEC and those guys don't like you to know that, right? They don't want you to know Economics 101. And I'm not saying CSEC. I'm using just CSEC as an example. You know I love you, CSEC. But I'm using CSEC as an example. Because that is what he has been taught from the Republican Party, that somehow that's not true. The truth of the matter is the more money that is taken in taxes from wealthy people, the better an economy works. And you know, we don't have to ask questions about that. There are answers to that, right? In other words, when Bill Clinton raised taxes, every single Republican, and I wrote that in my book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. That's what I have in this book here. I explained this in the book here. When Bill Clinton raised taxes, all the Republicans, they claim a fallacy. Oh my God, the economy is going to go into the crapper and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that happened when Bill Clinton raised taxes is there was more economic activity. But you know, that wasn't a surprise. If you take some money from the rich folks that have it sitting somewhere and you give it to people that are going to spend it right away, that money is going to generate economic activity, and it did. There's no other president that had created as many jobs, whose economy had created as many jobs as under Bill Clinton. And I'm not talking about lousy jobs like we have here under Donald Trump. I'm talking real jobs, fairly real jobs. I mean, it was still on the decline because of NAFTA and all of that. That's another subject. But there was a hell of a lot of economic activity. But let me tell you what else came with. It also came with a balanced budget. So we disproved the fallacies of Reagan, we disproved the fallacies of Bush 2, and we disproved the fallacies of Donald Trump. But here's the kicker. Notice I didn't say Bush 1. And the reason I didn't say Bush 1 is Bush 1 was a fairly smart and ideological to some extent guy. Bush actually called the kind of economics that conservatives run voodoo economics. Voodoo economics is what he calls it. And you know why he calls it voodoo economics? Because that's what it is. It's a lie. And we have shown that it's a lie because of all the Republican years that we've had. We've had that humongous transition of wealth to the wealthy. And we take a look at what happened with the tax cut that Donald Trump has passed. All that money has gone to the wealthy. Stock buybacks mean that the wealthy got 5 different tax cuts with that one tax cut, right? They paid less in capital gains. They got their monies coming in back into the country forgiven from high taxes. They also loaned the government more money because for that deficit spending, the government needed more money to be loaned, and which they loaned that money to the government. They collect the interest on the money they're loaning to the government. And on and on. The rich people cleaned up like bandits. And those are the things that you're not going to hear on TV. You're not going to hear on the mainstream media, right? And the reason you're not going to hear that on the mainstream media is they're paid to not tell you this stuff, right? These are the guys advertising there. Let me run back to the thread to see if there's anything else I miss. Okay, and there, no one is serious. Okay, so I hope, Miss Waldner, that you understood what I'm talking about when I talk about the socialism you read in the dictionary is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a bifurcated economy. Free enterprise, meaning you can go open your sandwich shop. You can go open any shop. You can go open your store. You can go open your manufacturing business, all of that. Go do it. Nothing stops you from doing that. But when it comes to healthcare, We want to make sure every single American have health care, and we want to have one and only one risk pool. Because in healthcare, if you have more than one risk pool, what happens then is the private corporation's job, and they're not doing anything wrong, it's their job. Their job is to maximize profits for their shareholders. That's their fiduciary responsibility. To maximize profits, a insurance company has to do two things. They have to try to get mostly healthy people in their plans, and they have to try to deny health care to those people who need health care. That is only two ways that they can maximize profit. They can say, oh, well, you can invest in other things. Well, no. I mean, that is a crapshoot. So that's how you make money. So that is what we're talking about. If we sat down and had a complete program on this, we can get over that, and we may have another program strictly talking about what an economy needs to look like, and we'll probably do it in the context of Elizabeth Warren, because her way of explaining it is boss on. I went to see Elizabeth Warren 2 weeks ago, and I interviewed her, in fact, 2 weeks ago for when she came out here to Houston. I got to make my quick pitch, and I hope that you guys would join me and stay with me. I need you to please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and please become subscribers. It's as little as $1.99, a little bit more if you want to be generous to support this program. Look, we educate people. We get emails telling us, wow, we didn't realize that. We get emails saying, yes, I'm going to pass this message along. We get emails that says, wow, why isn't somebody else telling me that? And the reason we're getting these emails is that we're making throughput. By the end of each one of my videos that we're doing with Politics Done Right are going to get several thousand views, both here on Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, everywhere. And so we are doing our job. We're making sure to do a job. And this is an altruistic endeavor. So what I ask you to do is support the program. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That's patreon.com/politicsdoneright. There are several ways to support us. I'm going to put that on the screen right now. Again, you can, if you buy anything at our store, store.politicsdoneright.com, buy a T-shirt, buy the squad T-shirt that I just made up. Get the squad T-shirt. Get a cup get one of the Politics Done Right cup. Get something there. You support the program by doing that. Go to politicsdoneright.com/donate for different methods of donating to the program and making sure we stay alive. You can go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Now, if you subscribe, you get to watch all our, see all our books online. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. By the time you're done with that book, I guarantee you will understand how the economy works and how we are crooked in this economy. The other book that I have online is, as you know, I've had some weight problems before, Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. I do all of this as methods to supplement this program. So, I mean, everything that I do here is to try to make some income to keep this program alive. And lastly, we have How to Make America Utopia. It's one that I'm writing. As I write a chapter, I put it online. I'm on my 4th chapter right now. How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. We're at the end of the program. I want to thank you so kindly for listening. I want you to not only listen, but I want to ask you to share. That is how we get the movement going. We share these programs to make sure that others are enlightened. And again, when you share the program, people get to see some of the comments as well and some of the discussions as well. It's so important that we take control of what's going on. If we take control. Earlier on, I don't remember who said it in the chat. They said if we got together, we could. In fact, I want to find what that person said. That was a good statement that they used. That person said, let's see, Democrats, I can't find it right now, too many comments. But anyhow, if we work together, however, we can actually get things done. So I ask you, share our videos, subscribe to our channels, subscribe to Politics Done Right. Go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. I need subscribers. I'm at 100. I'd like to get to 100. Let's get to 110 this weekend. It's inexpensive and it's worthwhile, and we are very frugal with your monies. We are very frugal with your monies. Sometime I'm going to give you. I have to clean up this studio so I can give you another view of how we do things here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. We cannot do this without you. And you know how I end the show? I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.